Hello, my name is Sean Deery, an MBA candidate at Stony Brook University, where I'm an intern for the Real Estate Institute and Clean Energy Business Incubator program at Stony Brook. This presentation will be an overview of my capstone report on missing middle zoning and how elected officials on Long Island can gain voter support through the adoption of missing middle zoning. This presentation will include an overview of Long Island as a region, the main topics within missing middle zoning, and some action items that can be worked on by elected officials. After the world wars of the 20th century, tens of thousands of veterans were looking for affordable homes to start a family and escape the bustle of city life. With vast open space and great natural areas, Long Island was targeted as the location for the first suburban neighborhoods in the nation to be built. First and foremost, the topic of missing middle housing is a zoning issue. Euclidean zoning was the original model used for suburban planning, spreading segregated property uses, such as single-family, retail, industrial, commercial, and other specific land uses, across Long Island. As developable land became more scarce, Long Island residents started to see dense development as a major threat to their quality of life, by associating apartments with traffic congestion, high taxes, and decreasing amounts of open space. This general view of dense forms of housing helped to maintain the strict zoning codes that favored single-family housing. With Long Island being such a popular place to live and a broad restriction on the types of housing that could be developed, Long Island quickly became undersupplied in its housing market. Multifamily development was still increasing up to the 1970s, but as Long Island's multifamily parcels became more scarce, a 210% decrease in the construction of apartment buildings occurred from 1980 to 2000, followed by another 30% decrease from 2000 to 2010. As you can see in these two charts, total building permits and total multifamily units built on Long Island have lagged severely behind neighboring regions. On average, New Jersey produced over 9 times as many multifamily units per 1,000 residents as Long Island from 1980 to 2015. What this housing undersupply has caused is a gap in the housing units needed and the extreme increase in housing costs across the region. By 2030, Long Island is expected to gain 158,000 additional households, with 104,000 of those households expressing a preference for housing in walkable, mixed-use areas. Unfortunately, the new development pipeline shows a 72,000 unit gap in walkable mixed-use housing units and a 22,000 unit gap of housing units in residential areas. Right now, 60% of Long Island residents see the lack of affordable housing as a serious problem. In 2020, Nassau County had 39% of households spending more than 30% of their income on housing, and Suffolk County had 41% of households meeting that criteria, some of the highest burdens in the nation. As you can see in this graph, Long Island's population growth started to level off in the 1970s when building opportunities became more scarce. This was also around the time that Long Island was becoming a significant regional economy with high-wage employment opportunities in advanced manufacturing. In 2019, Nassau County's population was 1.3 million, and Suffolk County's population was 1.4 million, representing a net migration loss of more than 63,000 people from 2010 to 2019. Housing costs are now crippling families, pushing seniors away from lower cost states and forcing young professionals to seek out other parts of the country where they can afford the walkable lifestyle that they desire. More specifically, 67% of residents aged 18 to 34 want to leave Long Island in the next 5 years, while only 40% of those residents expect to retire on Long Island. The most cited reason for leaving is the cost of living, confirming that the undersupply of housing is leading to a declining population on Long Island. With so many people leaving Long Island, companies are following them. Long Island lost close to half of its manufacturing industry from 1990 to 2010, and a 5% decrease in overall employment opportunities. As housing prices rose, land use became more restricted, labor costs started rising, and accessing talent on Long Island became more difficult. fewer and fewer companies maintain their operations on Long Island in favor of regions with lower operating costs and talent who could easily access their place of employment. Employers simply don't have the revenue to pay for the labor costs and wages needed by residents to afford living here, resulting in housing costs growth far outpacing personal income growth since 1997. One of the strangleholds on labor productivity is Long Island's traffic, coming from the automobile dependency associated with single-family homes. As of 2007, traffic delays and associated costs amounted to $1.9 billion in additional costs to do business and $4.6 billion of unrealized business revenue. One of the causes of that congestion and inefficiency is a lack of coordination between the over 700 taxing entities and service districts that divide Long Island. Although home rule provides many benefits through civic engagement and local affairs, it creates inefficiencies through duplication of effort, administrative delays, and excessive regulation. With so much red tape to cut through to work on regional issues, Nassau and Suffolk County were rated the #1 most expensive places to live in the United States in recent years. The largest complaint of residents who report a desire to leave Long Island in the next 5 years are the high taxes. In 2020, Long Island's 13 towns owe $187 million in public debt obligations, which is $33 million more than New York State's 900 other towns combined. Missing middle housing is anything besides a single-family home or a mid-rise apartment building, which includes accessory dwelling units, cottage houses, townhouses, courtyard apartments, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. Accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, are the most common form of missing middle housing, and can be considered any apartment that is added into an existing structure on a single-family residential parcel of land. ADUs have a private kitchen, bath, bedroom, and a living space separate from the primary dwelling unit. Long Island contained 809,000 single-family, detached housing units in 2016. If only 5 to 10% of these single-family homes successfully added an ADU, 40 to 80,000 housing units could be created without using any additional undeveloped land. As you can see, each town and village is at a different stage of ADU acceptance. One of the strongest calls for permitting ADUs across Long Island is the estimate that 100,000 illegal rental units exist across Long Island, operating without a permit, with no oversight on safety, property taxes, or legal standing. Some of these illegal units overstuff their bedrooms with renters to make the most profit and don't contribute their fair share to local property taxes. So proactive tax assessments, active code enforcement, and a streamlined process towards legalization of illegal ADUs is the optimal path forward. At the same time as ADUs should be more widely adopted, transit-oriented development, overlay districts, infill development, and adaptive reuse of existing properties have equal or greater potential to increase Long Island's housing affordability. Long Island is already so constrained by transportation and developed space, so these 4 zoning strategies directly play into regional economic development and planning efforts related to downtown revitalization and transportation improvements. Transit-oriented developments are coordinated placemaking efforts under a half-mile from a mass transit node that attempt to craft public spaces for community events, mix in multiple uses for a local economy, build at the pedestrian scale to increase walkability, promote ground floor retail and sidewalk cafes to bring foot traffic, incorporate green spaces wherever possible, and concentrate parking within walking distance to the pedestrian-oriented center. By far the most significant TOD currently being developed on Long Island is the Ronkonkoma Hub by Tritech Real Estate in Ronkonkoma. Seen as a model of collaboration between municipalities, Brookhaven and Islip towns worked together to allow for the Ronkonkoma Hub to move forward as a TOD, transforming 53 acres just north of the LIRR station into 1,450 residential units, 195,000 square feet of retail, 360,000 square feet of office and commercial, and 60,000 square feet of flex space. Overlay districts are a quick way that municipalities can customize zoning to the needs of a particular swath of land. allowing updated zoning codes to be overlaid onto an area. This tool is a great way for Long Island to target specific areas of regional significance that could benefit from increased density and/or land uses. A terrific example of overlay districts is the Innovation Park at Hauppauge, the second largest industrial park in the nation after Silicon Valley that recently approved an overlay district. With 1,350 businesses and 55,000 employees, the 1,600-acre Innovation Park is an important component of Suffolk County's economy. This recently approved overlay district could lead to the development of as many as 1,000 apartments, a greenway connection, quality of life amenities, business incubator, an advanced manufacturing hub, and a workforce training center that will address filling job openings in biopharma and finance. Infill development is characterized by adding new buildings or space to existing developed parcels, generally focused on downtown areas and underutilized parking lots. With such a strong demand for walkable lifestyles and Long Island's large vacancy rates in commercial space, infill development can create the necessary foot traffic and mix of uses to maximize the potential of a particular area. Related to transit-oriented development, a 2010 study found 8,300 acres of parking lots and undeveloped land within a half mile of downtowns or LIRR stations that could be developed into 90,000 new housing units in garden apartments, townhouses, and mid-sized apartments. Pictured here is the 26.4-acre former site of a Sears in Hicksville that has been vacant for many years. Seritage Growth Properties is proposing 425 apartment units, in addition to 250,000 square feet of commercial space featuring retail and office space, restaurants, a grocery store, cinema, fitness center, food service kiosks, and 5 acres of green space. Adaptive reuse is an increasingly common trend in retail space, since that sector has been radically transformed over the past 2 decades as online shopping has caused thousands of retail bankruptcies. Shopping centers on Long Island, between 10,000 and 350,000 square feet, had a retail vacancy of 9.3%, reducing the property tax base and bringing other negative impacts to the community character. Route 58 in Riverhead is one of the best examples of the outdated forms of retailing, focusing decades of development on destination retail such as Kmart and Toys R Us, which have largely been destroyed by online shopping. Riverhead Town Supervisor Yvette Aguilar is proposing an overlay district that would allow big box stores on Route 58 to participate in a transfer of development rights program for adaptive reuse for multifamily housing. This program would allow a vacant retail owner to purchase development credits that would allow them to build micro apartments up to 450 square feet in former retail structures. So what are the impacts of missing middle housing? Essentially, missing middle zoning will increase development certainty, reduce the time to add new housing stock, and raise Long Island's ratio of multifamily housing to reflect the housing demand that other regions have started to provide. It will also result in a lower risk of project failure, lower development costs, and a lower housing cost. As you can see in the charts on the left, 27% of Amityville's housing stock are multifamily housing units, and 73% are single-family homes, compared to Long Island's average of 18% multifamily housing and 82% single-family homes. Every income bracket above $35,000 a year in Amityville reported lower housing cost burdens than their average Long Island counterparts. Municipalities that allow for more missing middle housing are also seeing improved economic indicators on the local level. Amityville's median housing costs rose 7.1% from 2000 to 2018, but the median income rose 11.6%, compared to Long Island at large, whose median housing costs rose 23.6% at the same time as losing 1.6% of median income. Another example is Farmingdale, who allowed 6 multifamily buildings to be constructed in their downtown, while investing over $20 million into the downtown infrastructure, which has reaped $33 million in added tax revenue, a $1.74 return for every $1 invested. There is also an opportunity for missing middle zoning to contribute to regional economic development efforts, like Connect Long Island. that would benefit from the increased population in proximity to key regional assets like innovation zones and transportation hubs. Effective investments in public works projects through downtown revitalizations and added population density through missing middle housing can be the 1-2 punch needed to improve Long Island's expensive municipal services. The cost of municipal services increase directly in accordance with the distance traveled to provide such services to residents. Adding more residents to existing service districts in a dense way can reduce the burden that each of the taxpayers endure, and more residents in one area can support service expansion like sewer districts or bus rapid transit lines. There are many misconceptions and potential negative impacts of missing middle housing that need to be addressed for successful adoption. For school districts, almost every study you find points to a lower number of school-aged children in multifamily housing units as compared to single-family homes. Further evidence, 6 multifamily developments were built in Farmingdale since 2011, which have added $1.4 million in net positive tax revenue to local school districts alone over a 6-year period. For property values, a study from the National Association of Home Builders showed that houses within 300 feet of an apartment or condominium building went up 2.9% a year, compared to 2.7% appreciation rate of houses without multifamily housing nearby. For traffic concerns, the average daily car trips of a single-family home was 10 trips per day, while the average daily trips of an apartment was 6.3 trips per day, and condominiums and townhomes averaged 5.6 trips per day. In addition, a study showed that doubling density decreases vehicle miles traveled by 38%. For crime, Long Island already enjoys some of the lowest crime rates in the country, but new multifamily development typically incorporates lighting plans, open landscaping, security systems, and more safety features that can be required by the municipality. For environmental concerns, single-family properties account for the largest portion of Long Island's land use. Problems with nitrogen for landscaping and septic systems, impervious surfaces, auto dependency, and reduced open space. In addition, things like mass transit and sewer districts are only possible with higher density figures than present in eastern Long Island. For unattractiveness and only being for low-income populations, 41% of renters said that they rent by choice and not out of necessity, with the fastest growing segment being households making more than $50,000 a year. Also, real estate developers and homeowners have extensive financial incentive to create an attractive and successful residential property. To conclude, here are general recommendations and recommendations specific to missing middle housing types. First, municipalities should retain their zoning powers so missing middle zoning can be adapted to local needs. Next, one of the only ways to gain community acceptance is through community involvement in the zoning process. Bring them in early on and often to avoid chaos. Model codes can be developed by regional planning authorities, so municipalities only have to tweak the codes to their locality rather than duplicate efforts. Measures and metrics should be tracked throughout this process to analyze exactly what is improving and what needs to improve. And a regional view needs to become more widely adopted so Long Island doesn't end up backing itself into a corner in the same way it did with its zoning. For accessory dwelling units, toolkits should be developed so homeowners know exactly what an ADU can provide. Technical assistance should be offered to ensure a smooth process, and financing should be available to make this accessible to all homeowners. And finally, transit-oriented development should incorporate the best practices of streetscape improvements and utility upgrades to avoid rework and maximize the potential of the land that is so crucial to Long Island's future.